Yeah. All right. Yeah, we're back again. RC Guy Garage, working on the Team Associated DR10, which is an RTR. But what I am, what I'm actually thinking, I'm thinking like the name should be more modified. So why don't we call it the RTTR? Almost. What is it? Ready to tune, almost race. So I don't know. It's just like a whole bunch of things. I'm just joking around. But anyways, working on the Team Associated DR10. I keep calling it the DC10, but it's a DR10. It's a ready-to-run drag race vehicle. We did a COVID and Coffee live this morning. We did find out that we've got an issue with our front shocks. We have an issue with our rear shocks, so we're going to address that right now. Our front shocks were bleeding, actually both of them, which is very, very odd because it's not like we've been doing like wheelies and slamming the shocks down. It literally hasn't been doing anything. I mean, why are the shocks bleeding? If anything, the rear should be having an impact because there was a constancy of, force being applied to that rear end, but the rear seems fine. Now, on those rears, so what I did, right, to try to keep it copacetic, to try to keep it, I guess, for myself, okay, I've got driver's rear and I've got rear passenger. I probably should have wrote it different, but you can see. I actually wrote on the shocks with a paint pen. Hopefully that's in focus. I have no idea. And at least that's going to tell me which shock is actually for which side. So obviously, rear passenger, and then driver rear. Whatever. I don't know. These shocks, right? So I'm gonna get you in just in case you didn't see what was going on. Check out and see what's going on with this situation here. All right. So the two shocks right here. Let's get a paper towel. We got our shims. Everything's all here. We've got our springs. The springs, these right here, are actually for the shocks themselves. So we'll just kind of leave those over there. All this stuff we'll kind of scoop and get out of the way. All right, so here's our shocks. Get a nice white paper towel so it messes up the camera. So here we go. All right, so these are our shocks. These are the shocks that are, this is from the rear of the vehicle, okay? So right away what I had noticed was, so this is the rear passenger shock, okay? See how there's like a massive gap? That's basically the whole shim width on that one spring. And that's for that passenger side. Then this one right here, right? We settled that down and in, okay? And you can see right there, we've got another shock shim width. So between the two sides, we had a thick shim on one side and a thin shim on the other side, which is like, that just means like the springs are like screwed up. You know what I'm saying? Like, look at the gap. See that? Rear passenger, driver side rear. So number one, spring length seems to be like some kind of an issue or something. There's something going on to where these shocks just aren't right. And then on the fronts, everything seems straight. They're obviously the same shock front to rear. I mean, they measure the same, but these are bleeding. So I put front passenger on this one, and I didn't bother writing on this one, which I probably should. So there we go. So now I actually wrote it right there. So front driver side. And why is it doing a timer? What the heck is going on here with the timer? Oh, jeez, I'm being an idiot. I don't know what's going on here. So I want to actually crack this shock open first, and I do want to do it on camera just because I find it was kind of messed up. That's what that wrench is for. All right, so that's what that wrench is for. I'm gonna pause right here. That's what I think that wrench is for. So that wrench that's in there is actually for the it's actually for the shocks. So I'm assuming that this is what makes it so you can open these shocks. Look at that, huh? How ingenious. All right, so now we can hold that down and hopefully use something else to... The other thing I wanted to bring out too was, watch this. So I'll tip it up this way. So this is now standing straight up. These shocks, obviously these ones, they have air in them. Like, see the difference? Like, ready? Now it's contacting fluid, okay? This one, okay? I'll hold it up, keep it upside down. Whoa. See, now that one's contacting fluid. So obviously we know that one was leaking over the other. That's why you have the difference in height, but that's no good for something that's got to be tuned. And then I probably should show the rear as well. Let's see what the rear does for shocks. So we got that one. Pop this one down. Because now I know they both have air in them. But what I'm wondering is, how bad is it? So this is obviously the driver's side rear. And what I'll do is I'll push the shock shaft down until it contacts fluid. Right there. So literally, all right here, like literal, that amount of motion is dry. Okay? And those shocks were not bleeding. So these are the rears. Same thing. This is the passenger side rear. Contact. So there's that much air in the shock. That seems like a heck of a lot. Especially with a vehicle that is basically a race car. You can't have this kind of stuff happening here. So we'll leave those alone for now. Springs are over there. Spring heights. Let's see. Spring height's the same. So there's the spring heights. I think I got to put a white piece of paper behind it so you can see the difference in height. So that's the difference in height on the shocks, on the springs. So obviously that left side one, this one, is actually higher than the other one. Now somebody was saying maybe this one has a metal memory because it was compressed with extra shims, but I don't know. Springs, they're not supposed to though. Springs are, unless they're brought to a point of no return, they're not supposed to do that. Let's line that up again. We'll put the background in the back there, so you can see. Look at that. If I go like this, see that height difference? Yeah, that's no good. So what about the front springs? Let's just check out the front springs just for what do they say? Just for giggles? Almost looks like these are off too. So they're not matched springs, that's for sure. Yeah, look at that. You can see now the one on the right side is higher than the one on the left. So I don't know. I don't know what the heck is going on here. We got different height springs, different shock fluid heights. This is ready to tune and run. Not ready to run. Ready to tune and run. All right. So keep those aside. We'll jump on this front shock and need to get something in there. All right. So we got a pen kind of end, and I'm just going to turn that shock cap, crack it open. Okay, maybe not. Wow. That's not cranking open. All right, well, I guess I'm just going to have to, manhandle it a little bit more. Didn't want to have to break out the big guns here, but I guess we're going to have to. So, let's see. Crack this open. You know what? I'm going to put the flash on so you can see better. Yeah, that's better. So... there is an O-ring. There's an O-ring, but look at how much fluid there is not in there. That seems like a, is it like a gasket? Almost seems like, so they're relying on that? That isn't gonna work. What the heck, man? That doesn't work. Look at. See how you're looking straight down at that? There is some kind of something on there, but it's not big enough. See that? Whatever that is, that black piece of something, that's just not big enough. So that's why my fronts are leaking. Associated. What the hell are you guys doing, man? I don't even know what that is. That is a very just weak O-ring. So that's what that is. That's a piece of garbage. That's why my front shocks are leaking. And then let's look at the, I guess while we got it open, let's look and see what the fluid's like. See what kind of weight it is. That's very, very thin. I have no idea what weight that is. What's that, like 25 weight? All right, so this is the problem here. This O-ring is absolutely doing nothing. So I already know why the front one's leaking. So let's open up a back one. Since these are the fronts, let's open up a back one. The only thing I don't like is I don't like the weird, like, black lines. There we go. I guess if I leave it like that, there's no black lines, but then I don't know if you can even see. All right. Well, there we go. I'm going to pause it. Cut! Now, I'm just going to leave. I'm pretty much going to leave the shock oil as is. Meaning I'm not going to change it out just yet. I want to see, like, number one, I don't even know how I'm going to seal this. How am I going to seal this cap? Yeah, that's point blank. That's a terrible design. What the hell? You guys aren't making sense, man. All right. I'm going to just crack open one of these, I'm going to crack open one of these rears to see if the seal is different on the rear. Like, I mean, obviously it shouldn't be, but this wrench is dumb, too. These shock caps are, like, cranked closed. So keep that in mind. These things are absolutely cranked. And these ones weren't leaking. And obviously you can see, same deal with whatever that dumb seal is that really does nothing. Alright, well, I don't know, man. That's a rear, that's a front. Heck. I am not sure what weight oil is in there. So, cut. Alright, so we're back. And I've got a couple of different weights of shock oil. We've got an 80, which is this is Low C Racing. But this is a 80 weight oil. And then I've got a 25 weight oil right here. And I want to show you the viscosity, like, difference between the two. Like how they, I guess, fluid react. So I'm going to dip the screwdriver in here, pull it out, and see how it drips like that. This is a pretty damn lightweight oil, which, I'm not kidding, man. When I say this is like a 25 weight oil, that sure does seem like a 25. But I'm also wondering if it's a 20. We're going to crack open this 20 right here. I'm going to dip in this screwdriver, pull it out. And from my eyes, I believe it's like a 20 or a 25 oil that's in those shocks. Yeah, watch again. We'll dip it in. Maybe. Man, it is so close. So maybe it is that 25, like I said. Let's get you a look at 25, so you can understand like how it drips, per second. How many drips per second can we get here? So dip it in. Man, it's like, I think I may have been right. Man, it's literally like in between a 20 and a 25. Well, I'm going to throw a 25 in it just for now to top it off, because I believe potentially that's like what it is. And a thicker shock oil isn't going to hurt anything, especially like where I am right now. It's pretty cold. And I think the lower shock oil, I think it'll react fine. So I'm going to top this off. Just like that. You can see it's got like that. It's got that like little well. And then as we bring the shock shaft up, bring it up like that. And then we'll take the cap. This is the rear. We're going to cap it. And it should, as we crank it down, boy, these really aren't the best shocks here. As we crank this down, it should leak out. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying not to get a preloaded shock. It's going to be a very slight amount, and I think that's inconsequential. So we'll do that. We'll give this a crank, like how they had it. I almost feel like you're going to break it. It's got a little bit of rebound in it. Now, while putting the shock oil in, something else that I had noticed, obviously we had, there's two sets of springs here. It's almost as if we have a longer set of springs and a shorter set of springs. It's so minimal, but one side from the front and one side in the back were the same height, and then magically one side front to back was the other smaller height, so I just swapped it out. So now I've got the two longer springs sitting together and the two shorter springs sitting together. So I'm going to put the shorter springs up front. I think. I don't know. Like normally it, oh my God, that light. So normally it would be the shorter springs up front and the longer springs up back because of travel, but this is a drag car, so I'm going to put the shorter springs in the back, because the front end is going to technically be the end that should have the most travel. If that makes any sense. Wheelie bar, you know what I mean? I don't know. I'm going to put the shorter springs in the back and the longer ones up front. We'll just do it that way. So here we are now, and this is what I feel. I don't know. I hope this is going to work. So what I did is I now matched the shocks. So obviously we had found one whole side of the car was a longer spring than the other side, which was probably why my suspension initially, something just wasn't looking right. So I took everything apart. I redid the shock oil, meaning all I did was I added 25 weight oil to it, because it seemed like the shock weight oil was literally viscous-wise in between 20 and 25. So I'm just going to leave it there for now. I'm not worried about shock oils. It's really, shock oil's kind of inexpensive. So I'm going to leave it stock for now. I am in a colder climate, so I have a feeling that maybe this will work. I mean, I'm not in 90 degrees, but so longer springs up front, shorter springs out back. You can tell I've got the bigger shims. So here we go. See, you've got a front passenger and a rear passenger. And when you line those up, you can see the shock shims. That's literally what the spring sits at with no compression. All the way down. They match in height, completely perfect. So that's where we're going from here. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to install those shocks on the vehicle right now. And then I'm going to top off the battery and give it a couple of runs. And pretty much I feel like I'm starting at square one just because of finding fault with the shocks. Now, there obviously is supposed to be a little bit of oil. I mean, there's supposed to be a little bit of air in this style of shock because it's not a bladder style shock. But the amount of air that I found in those, I don't think that I needed that much air. I had very, very little rebound once I did mine. All the shocks are now basically filled to even. And then as I close the cap, I push the shock piston, I push the shock shaft all the way up that has the piston or valve on it. Some people call it a piston. I just have a tendency to call it a valve. So, because it valves the fluid. So, that's where I'm staying with right now. Just going to install it and give it a couple of test runs and see what happens. It's all that testing tune, you know? Oh, all right. Is what it is. So, is it recording? I don't even know. All right. What the hell? All right. So, I feel like I'm losing my mind a little bit here. I'm not sure what screw it is. So these are the screws for the back shocks. It's not focusing. Well, there's those threads again right there. Oh, where'd the screw go? So just like the differential, check it out. More of those metal threads that are on the screws. I'm trying to unthread it so you can see it. It's going to come off right in my fingers. Right there. That's metal. More of those metal threads. The screws that they used are garbage. Look at that. See that right there? That's metal. It's metal threads that are stuck on here that's causing things to strip out. Almost looks like there's a little bit on this one too. Look at that. See that right there? Come on, you focus. See? More of those metal threads stuck on these screws. That's not cool, man. Definitely not cool. These are the screws that hold in the lower the shocks on the back here. So I'm just going to install those shocks and then we'll take it out and rip it. But I just had to show you that. So like I had said that I felt like I was kind of going backwards. We're all set now. It's sitting fairly level. Definitely don't like that passenger side front tire. It definitely has like a way funkiness to it where this one seems more normal. What I do now want to adjust or address is I feel like I want to try to address the camber that we have on this wheel because it looks like, yeah, it's no good. I'm not liking that camber. What it's doing is it's sucking in the wheel. So once this thing drops, if it drops, it starts running. It starts running on the inside, which is going to cause it to lose traction. And the same thing on this side, too. So when the wheel is sitting like that, when I'm fully pulling it up, it's fine, but as soon as... Man, when I press down on the center of this wheelie bar, that right side shock is collapsing faster. You probably can't see what I'm talking about. See that? See how when I apply the pressure, see how it's kicking down? It's like that driver's side isn't moving at all. See that? See how it's like this shock is locked? I'm just going to apply pressure, even pressure on that. But watch how when I do that, we got no action on the suspension on that side. Then on this side, we have compression. What is it doing? So that tells me that maybe that shock is slightly overfilled. Seeing that we're getting some action on this one. So I'm going to pop that shock off again. And I'm going to check the fluid level. And to be honest with you, I think I'm actually going to take a little bit of fluid out. Because look at, no motion. No motion on that driver's side. It's all on the right side. Which is causing, look what's causing the front to do. It's time for some nachos. So we're taking the shocks off again, and I'm actually going to now switch from left to right. So I want to see if changing the shocks from left to the right, whether that changes, because I did just check this shock. The shock actually seemed like it was filled fine. And then this one over here, this is the one that's collapsing first. This one is getting no motion when I'm pressing down on the very center of the wheelie bar. So I'm just swap them out. Make sure there's like no like weird like binding or something. So I'm just going to try that out. It's not a bad picture right there. Look at that. That's actually pretty sweet. Take a picture. All right. Hopefully things are now squared away with this DR10. Some of the issues that we're having some major feels like shock tuning issues. So I blew out all the shocks. My two front shocks, obviously, you saw those were bleeding. Now they should be all set. We're going to take it out for a rip, so let's just stop talking and just take it out for a rip. The sun's almost gone. The steering is so damn sensitive. All right. So I'm going to just do a couple of cold hits with it right now, just to see what happens. I'm not sure what's going to happen, but let's just see if it launches. Yeah. So the same thing that we had happen before. Full cocked. Now we're back to full right turn issues. So let's just burn the tires up. See what happens. See if that changes anything. Alright, so it did help the launch, but it still went. Give it another burn. So how about instead of just giving it full throttle, definitely has a huge amount of kick. You can see the whole body torque. Hit it again. so now we are cranking to that. We're cranking to that right again. Let it do a cold hit. Ready? That was a lot of steering in that. Ooh, I just made it over that drain. Do another little tire burn. Oh my God. That was actually good. However, what that was I actually gave it left steering. But that was a much better hit, though. Oh, my God. So if I give it a little left steer, so you see what I'm saying? If I give it a little bit of left steer, it does end up going. All right. See, I have to give it left steering. In order for it to stay straight, watch, I'll give it left steering. And even then, you got to know when to back off of it. Ooh, am I getting front tire rub? I think I am. I think I'm getting front tire rub on the inside of the body. I am! What you got right there? God damn you. Ah! Yeah. Yeah, it's rubbing the body bad. So I could probably like 3/4 it. Oh, not that time. That time it was all over the place. All right. Let's do a couple standing ones, because now my foot's killing me. I'm dying here. Just get right behind it and see what it does. Oh, right for the grass. Yeah, I don't know, man. Definitely getting some body rub in there. I'm gonna have to protect the, because I have to protect the paint because it's getting bad. It's all over the place. I think the shock oil needs to be thicker. That's what I'm thinking. I don't know. I feel like I'm getting just way too much dive. I don't know, man. It's just way too much diving in it. This is a whole new experience for me here. Yeah, I think thicker shock oil is definitely going to help out. That worked. Now that was more like it. That actually pulled a wheelie. Oh. That wasn't too bad. Oh. I still think I need thicker shock oil. I feel like I'd like to see a little bit of a taller gear in it, too. Yeah, if I 3/4 throttle it, then as soon as it rolls, just give it full beans. Like I said, I in no way ever claim to be any kind of drag race anything, but at least I'm giving it a shot. And anybody want to drag race? I need somebody to drag race against so that I know what I've got to do. So I think I just figured out at least the pedal pressure. To not maybe bone it at just full speed because the tires just aren't hooking up anyway. It's definitely like that feeling. Sight, sound, and the feel of I guess what it's doing is what I believe I'm coming across. So I don't know. I got a couple of good passes. It's obviously going to take time to figure out where my, hand should be on the trigger or where my pressure should be. I almost wish it was like a two-step throttle so you could just know by pressure, you know what I mean? And then give it full, open up the full barrel. You know what I'm saying? Kind of like that in a sense. Instead of having all ponies just right off the starting line, to be able to give it like that, up to 3/4, then bang. So as it launches, then I think, then bang. I guess, I don't know. So anyways, if you like watching these episodes from RC Guy Garage, you already know what to do. We are ripping the DR10 from Team Associated. So why don't you, yourself, get out there and, like I said, just rip it.
Get ready for the Moorhead opener. Alright.
Oh, that is nuts.